Mark, I want to describe a moment today, and I want everyone listening to raise their hand mentally if they have lived through it, even once, even this week.
Okay, walk us in.
You are in a meeting. Native English speakers are talking. The conversation is fast, ideas are bouncing, and you have something valuable to say, a really good point, a relevant insight, something that would genuinely add to the discussion.
Mm-hmm.
But there is no opening. Every time you think a pause is about to come, someone else starts talking. The conversation keeps flowing, voices layer over each other, and you sit there waiting for the polite gap, the moment where you can finally jump in without being rude.
And the gap never comes.
The gap never comes, and 10 minutes later, the meeting has moved on to a different topic. Your point is no longer relevant, and you walk out of that meeting frustrated because you had something to contribute and you never got the chance.
And here's what almost no advanced English course explains. In native English professional culture, meetings do not have natural pauses, not in the way learners expect them. The rhythm is faster than that. The overlaps are constant, and the people who successfully contribute are not the ones who wait for silence. They are the ones who have learned to break into conversation with a specific short phrase that signals politeness while still claiming the floor.
And this is one of the most invisible skills separating fluent-sounding advanced learners from actually effective bilingual professionals, because you can have perfect English grammar, rich vocabulary, sophisticated ideas, and still be silent in every meeting because you never learned how to break into a fast-moving conversation politely.
And today we are going to fix this. We are going to walk through why native meetings actually flow the way they do. We are going to teach you the specific interruption categories that structure how native speakers claim the floor. We are going to give you a complete toolkit of interruption phrases you can memorize and deploy immediately. And we are going to reveal the one micro signal that makes the difference between an interruption that lands as rude and one that lands as leadership.
Welcome to Side by Side English Podcasts. I'm Sophie.
I'm Mark. Today is for the advanced learner who has been silent in too many meetings, who has watched their contributions expire while waiting for polite openings that never arrive, who has walked out frustrated more times than they can count. We are going to end that pattern today.
Stay with us. We have the physics of native meeting rhythm, the 3 interruption categories, the full toolkit of phrases, the microsignal that makes interruptions land warmly, a role play showing the silent learner versus the active contributor, and a word tour with 6 brand new B2 to C1 words.
Quick question before we begin. Be honest, how many times this month did you have something to say in a meeting and never got the chance to say it? Drop the number.
Okay, let's break into the conversation. So, Mark, let's start with the mechanics. Why do native English meetings never seem to have the pauses that learners are waiting for?
Because native English professional conversation operates on a specific rhythm that most language courses never explain. In this rhythm, people do not wait for someone to finish. They anticipate the finish. They start planning their entry while the current speaker is still talking, and they enter the conversation with a fraction of a second of overlap, which sounds slightly rude in some cultures, but in native English professional culture, it is exactly the expected behavior.
So the rhythm is not stop, wait, speak. The rhythm is anticipate, overlap slightly, take the floor.
Exactly. And this rhythm has a specific reason behind it. Native English meetings are competitive spaces for airtime. There are always more people who want to contribute than there is time for. And the informal rule is that if you wait for a full pause, someone else will always take the floor first. So the culture has evolved to reward those who claim the floor with a small, polite overlap, and to quietly penalize those who wait too long by giving them no space at all.
And here is what learners need to hear clearly. This is not rudeness. This is the culture. The people who successfully lead meetings, contribute in meetings, and get promoted from meetings are not the ones who politely wait. They are the ones who have mastered the art of a warm interruption, which is a completely different skill from waiting.
And once learners understand this, the shame around interruption starts to dissolve because you realize you are not being rude by breaking in. You are participating in the actual rhythm of the room. And the alternative to breaking in is not respect. The alternative is silence, which nobody in the room mistakes for respect. They mistake it for disengagement.
Let's actually name the 3 interruption categories because native speakers do not just randomly break in. They break in with specific intents, and each one has its own phrasing toolkit.
Yes, 3 categories.
Category 1, the additive interruption.
This is when you want to add something to what the current speaker is saying. You agree with them, you are building on their point, and you want to layer your contribution onto theirs. This is the warmest, most politically safe interruption category, and it's the perfect starting point for learners who are nervous about breaking in at all.
Category 2, the clarifying interruption.
This is when you want to slow the conversation down, ask a question, make sure everyone is aligned before the discussion moves forward. This category is powerful because it positions you as thoughtful and detail-oriented. Even senior executives use clarifying interruptions constantly, and it's often rewarded rather than penalized.
Category 3, the redirective interruption.
This is the highest stakes category, when you want to steer the conversation in a new direction, introduce a different angle, push back on the current framing. This requires more confidence and better phrasing, but it's also the category that signals leadership most strongly, because redirection is what senior operators do.
3 categories: additive, clarifying, redirective, and each one has its own specific phrasing toolkit.
Let's walk through the phrases, because I want learners to leave this episode with a real language they can deploy in their very next meeting.
Yes, let me organize them by category.
For the additive interruption, building on what you just said, to layer onto that point. Yes, and just to add to that, that connects to something I was thinking. All 4 of these phrases signal that you are agreeing and expanding. They land warmly, they give the current speaker a small compliment by acknowledging their point, and they open the door for your contribution without stepping on their toes.
For the clarifying interruption, can I pause us here for a second? Quick clarifying question before we move on, just to make sure I'm tracking with you. Before we move further, can I check something? All 4 of these signal that you are trying to keep the group aligned. They read as detail-oriented rather than obstructive, and they are especially effective when the conversation is moving too fast for good decision-making.
For the redirective interruption, if I could just jump in here. Sorry to cut across, but I want to raise something. Can I take a quick step back on this one? I want to offer a different angle for a moment. All 4 of these are how native speakers introduce a shift in direction. They are polite enough to land warmly and direct enough to actually take the floor, which is exactly the balance you need for redirection.
12 total phrases, 4 in each category. Memorize at least 1 from each, say them out loud until they feel natural in your mouth, so that when the meeting moment arrives, you can deploy them without having to construct the language from scratch.
And now let's talk about the micro-signal, because just saying the phrases is not enough. There is one specific piece of vocal delivery that determines whether an interruption lands as warm leadership or as pushy rudeness.
Yes, tell us.
The signal is a small lift in the first 3 words of the interruption, a slightly higher pitch, a slightly warmer tone, almost as if you were starting to smile with your voice. This tiny vocal signal tells the room that you are entering with respect, that you value the current speaker, that you are contributing, not attacking.
And the reason this matters is that the words alone can go either way. If I could just jump in here, said with a flat, tired tone, lands as an impatient interruption. Said with a small, warm lift on, if I could just, it lands as engaged participation. Same words. 2 completely different receptions, determined entirely by the microsignal.
And this brings us back to the intonation work from our earlier episode on English melody. The microsignal is essentially applied intonation, a small warm rise at the beginning of your interruption, which softens the entry without weakening it.
Okay, let's do a role play. Mark, set the scene.
Yes, 2 versions. First, the silent learner who waits for a pause that never comes. Then, the octave contributor who deploys the interruption phrases with the microsignal. Same meeting, same content, 2 completely different outcomes.
Okay, the situation is a strategy discussion. The team is debating whether to prioritize a product launch or a partner integration first. Voices are moving fast. Our speaker has a valuable insight.
Version 1, the silent learner.
Speaker's internal experience. They are waiting. They have a great point about how the two priorities are not actually exclusive. They open their mouth twice, but each time someone else starts talking. They close their mouth. They try again, someone else takes the floor. They give up. 10 minutes later, the conversation moves to budgeting. Their insight was never shared.
And this is the specific tragedy. The speaker had genuine value to add. Their insight might have changed the direction of the discussion, but because they were waiting for a pause that native English meetings do not produce, their contribution died silently inside them.
Version 2. Same speaker, same insight, but now they know how to interrupt. After the current speaker makes a point, our speaker breaks in with a small warm lift on the first words. Building on what you just said, I think we might actually be framing this as an either-or when it doesn't have to be. If the launch and the integration are sequenced correctly, they could actually strengthen each other. Can I walk through what I'm seeing?
And listen to what just happened. The speaker used an additive interruption phrase to enter warmly. The microsignal in the delivery made it land as engaged. The current speaker was subtly complimented by building on what you just said, and by the time the speaker finished their opening sentence, the room had turned toward them, and they had successfully claimed the floor.
And the insight got shared. The team considered it, the discussion changed direction, and the speaker walked out of that meeting having actually contributed to a decision instead of walking out silent and frustrated like all the previous meetings.
Same speaker, same insight, same meeting, two completely different professional outcomes created by the difference between waiting for a pause and knowing how to break into the rhythm politely.
Word tour.
First word, airtime. Airtime is the amount of time you get to speak in a group setting. In native English professional culture, airtime is competitive. There is never enough of it for everyone. And learning to claim your airtime respectfully is one of the most important professional skills you can develop.
For example, meetings are essentially competitions for airtime, and those who never break in never get their share. Repeat, airtime.
Airtime. Next, to overlap. To overlap means to partly cover something at the same time. In native English conversation, overlapping the tail of another speaker's sentence by a fraction of a second is normal, even expected, and this is deeply different from what many learners were taught.
For example, small overlaps at the tail of another speaker's sentence are the normal way native English speakers claim the floor in fast conversations. Repeat, overlap.
Overlap. Next, to anticipate. Anticipate means to sense in advance, to predict what is about to happen so you can prepare. Skilled meeting participants anticipate when the current speaker is about to finish so they can enter with the right timing.
For example, native English speakers do not wait for pauses. They anticipate them, which is why they always seem to get the floor. Repeat, anticipate.
Anticipate. Next, assertive. Assertive means confident, direct, willing to express what you want without hostility. It is the exact register that a good interruption should carry. Not aggressive, not shy. Assertive.
For example, the interruption phrases we share today are designed to help you enter conversations assertively, which is exactly what professional environments reward. Repeat, assertive.
Assertive. Next, cadence. Cadence is the rhythm and flow of speech. Every meeting has its own cadence, and learning to read the cadence of a meeting tells you when to enter and when to hold back. It is a subtle skill, but it is trainable.
For example, once you can read the cadence of a meeting, you know exactly when to break in, and interruptions stop feeling risky. Repeat, cadence.
Cadence. And finally, presence. Presence is the sense of being fully there, fully engaged, fully occupying the space you are in. Interrupting well is one of the most direct signals of presence in a meeting. It says, I am here, I am tracking, and I am contributing.
For example, your presence in a meeting is measured partly by whether you break in when you have something to say or stay silent, hoping for openings. Repeat, presence.
Presence.
6 words today: airtime, overlap, anticipate, assertive, cadence, and presence. Every one of them is a real, modern, useful English word that captures something specific about how native professional conversations actually work.
Sophie, one final takeaway.
that the reason you have been silent in so many meetings has nothing to do with your English level. It has to do with your inherited belief that polite people wait for pauses. In native English professional culture, that belief guarantees that you will never speak, because the pauses you are waiting for do not exist in this rhythm.
And the fix is not to become rude. The fix is to enter the actual rhythm, which means learning to break in with warm, specific phrases that signal politeness while still claiming the floor, combined with the small vocal lift that makes the interruption land as respect rather than aggression.
Small challenge before we go. For the next 7 days, use one interruption phrase per meeting. Just one, not 5. Just one per meeting deliberately. Pick a phrase from any of the 3 categories that fits, and practice deploying it once per meeting, whether or not you have a big point to make. Even for a small, clarifying question, just to build the muscle.
And notice what happens. Notice the first time feels terrifying. Notice how by the 3rd or 4th time, it starts to feel almost normal. Notice how your colleagues respond to you differently. Notice whether your presence in the room shifts.
Drop a comment after the week. Tell us which phrase you used most. Tell us if any moment surprised you. We want to hear the wins.
Because the moment a bilingual professional realizes that they can politely enter fast conversations at will using specific memorized phrases is one of the most career-transforming moments in the entire journey. Silence stops being the default. Presence starts being available, and the contribution that had been dying inside them for years finally begins to be heard.
I'm Sophie.
I'm Mark. Thanks for being here. Thanks for being willing to look at one of the most important professional skills that almost nobody teaches.
Break in warmly. Claim your airtime. We'll see you in the next one.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.